Okay, so it's government time again, and once again, I'm not able to be with you guys today. I'm at a doctor's appointment, so I won't be able to make it, but we are still going to continue on, and I figured I would show myself on the screen so you guys can see me since it's been a while. The agenda that we have for today is you guys are going to start by taking an electoral college quiz on things like primaries, caucuses, how we vote. That'll be on Scantron. It's pretty short, and I'll be able to grade that quickly, and I'll put it up on SchoolView how you did this weekend. After you finish with the quiz, you guys are going to work with at least one other person, maybe two, in a Chromebook, and you're going to do some research on the history of voting in the United States. This is something where you need to finish it this class, or you should, and you should have time. If you don't, then it's homework for you, and you need to finish it outside of class. It will be on a Google form, so if you, for whatever reason, don't get done in class, then you're going to want to copy down any of your answers, because remember, Google Forms, you can't save in the middle of them. So you want to copy them down, email them to yourself, and then you can paste them back in, and you can continue later on. But you should have time as long as you're focused and on top of things to finish up during class. Also, in terms of announcements today, you had a formative quiz that was due, that is due tonight at 11:55. Hopefully you took it by last night so you could get ready for the summative quiz, but if you haven't done that yet, you could still take it and earn those points, and then obviously we have our summative quiz today. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about the election that happened 2 nights ago, since we haven't had a chance to talk about it since then. Hopefully you had a moment to watch it, and maybe you could even teach your parents about what was going on, or your siblings if they didn't understand. If you watched, you would have seen that Obama won, and he actually won quite handily compared to what people thought. Remember, if you notice, you had 303 electoral votes to Mitt Romney's 206. If you remember, the magic number that he needed is 270. And still, even at this time, Florida has not reported yet because they're trying to figure out who actually won. If you look at the popular vote, though, it's actually really close, right? 50% to 48%. But our system, the Electoral College, has a tendency to do that. It kind of exaggerates the outcome because it's a winner-take-all system. If you look here, here's a map that illustrates the states and how they went. Remember, red means Republican and blue means Democrat. There's an awful lot of red on this map. So you might be wondering, why didn't Romney do better? And the answer is that the red states are not that populated. If I show you a different map, here are these states, but instead of being based on land size, they're now based on population. So if you notice up here in the top, Montana is extremely small because it's only 3 electoral votes. And Massachusetts, which is normally isn't a very big state land size wise, is larger because it has 11 votes. And you can see how these states fell for President Obama and Romney. So clearly the blue states, the bigger states, allowed Obama to win. Here's another look at that. If we take the election results, this is called a cartogram chart, and it skews the size of states based on their population. So you notice there's not as much red as there was in the original map because these states, like I said, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, are not all that heavily populated. All that blue represents all these states that are heavily populated, like California, New York, Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania, things like that, Illinois. Here is a map that illustrates how the districts, counties in the United States voted. And you see, again, a lot of red on this map. So the question is, why didn't Romney do better? And the answer is that where you see all this red, these are rural areas where there's not a lot of citizens living. And the areas where there's heavy population, like on the West Coast, on the East Coast, in areas of the Midwest, that's where you have a lot of blue. If we take that and make it a cartogram again, you see that there's a lot more blue on this map than there is red when we're looking at population. So that's how the election results came out for president. There are also there were senators all across the country that were up for re-election. Republicans were hoping to win a majority of the Senate back from Democrats, and they were unable to do so. In fact, Democrats actually won more seats than they originally had, and that was kind of an upset. One of the reasons behind that was there were a couple senators that were quite extreme members of the Tea Party that did not get elected and allowed Democrats to maintain control. Republicans still have control of the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. So we're still probably going to see a lot of fighting between the House and the Senate and Congress this year in terms of making laws. But definitely a good night for Democrats when it comes to the election. talking about our results as a funky team, you guys voted for 49% for Barack Obama and then 39% for Mitt Romney, which is a little bit more liberal than the rest of the population was, but that makes sense because typically the younger you are, the more likely you are to be liberal. Jim Carlson got some votes, which I'm sure you guys are laughing about. He is the grassroots party guy, the guy who wants to legalize marijuana. So I'm sure that there were some people who thought it would be funny to vote for him. Speaking of the grassroots party, the guy Tim Davis also got a few votes for the Senate, but far and away Amy Klobuchar from you guys received the most votes. And this is the same result that was in the real election. Amy Klobuchar handily defeated Kurt Bills. You guys probably voted for her because she's Democratic, which I think most of you are more liberal because of your, your age and other ideas. And also, she was the incumbent, which a lot of times I think if you didn't know anything about Amy Klobuchar, most of you just voted for the incumbent, whoever that was. Keith Ellison is the representative from District 5, which is part of Edina. He won in real life, and he also won from your guys' vote. When it came to these Supreme Court justices, it was interesting to see how everyone voted, and hands down, everybody voted for the incumbent. And that was the same way in the real election. The incumbents won every time, which just shows how important it is to be an incumbent, to be the person who's in office. A lot of times people go vote and they don't know who they're voting for. They just vote for whoever has done the job because they trust them. The marriage amendment, there's a typo up here, by the way. This should say yes and next to the black. You guys soundly defeated the marriage amendment 70 to 30%. This was a way bigger margin that existed in the real world in Minnesota, although the amendment was defeated with the real vote as well. It was a lot closer with the voter ID, 50.9 to 49.1, but it was also defeated just like it was in the real vote in Minnesota too. So both amendments in the real world failed, just like they did at Southview. I'm going to skip through a few of these a little faster. The biggest upset in Edina was in your vote. Keith Downey won quite handily, which I would imagine is because you know the family, and also he was an incumbent. However, he did not win in the real election, which was quite an upset. He was expected to win by 5 or 6 points, and for whatever reason, he did not. Ron Earhart was a Democrat who won with you guys, and he also won in the real election. I'm going to skip through some of these judges and things like that because they're not as important. The last one here, Jim Hovland won for mayor from you guys for about 77%, and that was almost what he won by in the real election too. He won quite handily. And then the city council is probably not as important. You guys were, I think, guessing on most of that. So anyway, these are our results, and they mirrored the real results quite well. So I appreciated you guys voting and putting time into it. I hope what you learned is what it might be like to vote, and you are more likely to vote in 4 years when you guys are 18 and you can for the first time. So anyway, the rest of this class, you guys are going to take your quiz, and then you are going to work on the history of voting with a partner. Please make sure you're on topic with that. I expect that of you. If you don't get done with that, it is homework for you, and I expect you to finish it up by next class. So good luck, and I hope you have a good day. Thanks.